So good morning from Sherry Forsyth, the Peak Performance Coach, and I have with me today my very dear friend Janine Player. This is the first in a series that I'm going to do regarding health. I'm going to be interviewing people who are ill themselves and also some health professionals. The reason I'm doing this is to pave the way for a workshop I'm holding in September on illnesses that people can't really see. And like the autoimmunes, the rheumatoid arthritis, when people are either in a lot of pain or if they are have no energy, but it's not the illness is not visible. And so the workshop is for carers of people with illnesses like that, as well as for the people who are suffering themselves. So today is the first in a series on health, and so I'm asking Janine, who is a very accomplished businesswoman, a wife, a mother, a very good friend, and also a cancer survivor, to just chat to us a little bit about her journey. And so Janine, by starting, maybe just to tell our listeners how it all transpired, how long ago was your diagnosis, and then we can go from there.
Right, Sherry. Well, I did have cancer a long time ago, so I've been in remission for about 11 years. But how it happened, and this is just such a reality check for all of us, is I just went for my standard annual mammogram, which I'd read that one should start doing when one is 40. So I had been for a couple of mammograms, and each time a lump had been picked up in my left breast. And I'd had the lumps tested, and they had come out as benign and no problem. So when I went for this mammogram, I was actually 44 at the time. The mammogram picked up another lump, and I said, yes, okay, that's fine, I know about that lump. We've had it tested, and it's not a problem. And no, the radiologist said we need to test it again. And I was very relaxed, and then the next day I got this phone call to say that I've got stage 3 cancer. It was such a bolt out of the blue, and you really, I don't think anyone expects that to happen to them. Cancer happens to somebody else. It doesn't happen to you. You know, it's a shame if it happens to other people, but never going to happen to you. And I went through all that roller coaster of emotions when I was first diagnosed, because I went to the oncologist a number of times. The oncologist recommended surgery, ended up in the surgeon's office for a radical mastectomy, and you walk around in a complete state of shock initially, and then you go through a period of incredible feeling sorry for yourself. How could this happen to me? Perhaps I've made a mistake, trying to look for some hope. And then real anger that it happened to you. What did you do? And I mean, really, I was never particularly overweight. I suppose one always would like to be a bit thinner, but never particularly overweight, always reasonably fit. I had breastfed both my children, never smoked, never ever smoked, and very angry. But if you go through it all, I had the radical mastectomy, had about a year of chemotherapy, which also is no walk in the park, as anyone would know if they've gone down that road. But it's amazing. I almost forget sometimes that I even went through that journey, because my life has been really incredible, and I have a great life. And I'm in remission, have been in remission for a long time, and hold on to the hope that it continues forever.
Indeed, indeed. So Janine, when you were having your treatment, there must have been times when you were feeling really weak and ill and kind of maybe almost losing hope. Maybe not losing hope. But what kept you going when you were having those really tough times during your treatment?
Look, it is a process that one has to go through. It never ever entered my mind that I was not going to come through it. That was not an option. I was absolutely determined that at my age, and the medical people that were working with me also said, do this and you will come out of it. We will be able to kill this cancer. And that's probably why I had such extremely harsh cancer, chemotherapy. The protocol that they used was very, very strong because I was young and I could handle it. But it never entered my head. I just did not allow it to enter my head that I would not get through it. And I tell you, one thing, if anyone goes through that, one must remember that I think it's much harder for the people around you. Everybody was worried about me and caring for me and concerned about me and wrapping me up in cotton wool and looking after me. But my husband and my children went through an incredible amount of stress, particularly my husband. I think he aged about 10 years in that year, because he was the one who was having to hold it all together. And both my children were still at school, and he was having to run around after them and hold the homestead together, and of course being incredibly worried about me. And I think in a lot of ways people didn't really care that much about him, because he wasn't the one who was sick. I was the one who was sick, and I was dragged up a lot of the time. But so he was amazing. He was absolutely amazing. My children were incredible, but my friends and my community, it's just quite humbling how my friends banded together. And suddenly, a week or two after I come out of hospital, meals started arriving every evening. Not that I was particularly on the market for eating, but certainly my family still had to eat, and they had just constant love and support, visitors coming through, just sitting with me quietly. That also is invaluable, and if people don't have that sort of support around them, I just think it must be so much harder to keep positive and to keep focused on the ultimate long-term goal. So if you can be in a community, and I never expected it. It's not like I thought I had a huge circle of friends. I was always a very focused businesswoman and very, very busy, and sometimes I jokingly still say, I'm surprised I still have friends, because I'm always too busy to spend time with my friends. But goodness me, when that happened, my friends and often friends of friends and neighbors bandied around and helped enormously. So that was amazing. So, no, people just didn't allow me to really wrap myself up and wallow in self-pity. That wasn't an option. And having children is, well, children are children. So it's not in their nature to sort of beat their breasts and wail. They're positive, and my little boy he used to come and sit with me and talk to me and hold my hand, and he was only in junior school. So all of these things, compounded all these things. So it is wonderful if one has all that support, and that's what really did hold me together.
And Janine, running your own business is obviously something that puts a little bit of additional stress on you, as opposed to if you're working for a big corporate where you could just take sick leave and carry on. So how did you, I know you're very busy in your work, but how did you get the balance between all the roles that you're juggling? Is there a big tip as to how you managed?
I honestly think if anybody tells you that they have achieved the proper balance in their life, then they're just not being truthful. I just don't think it really exists. But having had a really serious illness does make you perhaps refocus on how important it is to try, at least, and continue to try to maintain some sort of balance. And when I first started having the treatment, after I'd gone through the mastectomy, it's an awful thing because you have all these drains and things and you walk around, it's terrible. But once I'd gone through that and I started the chemotherapy, I decided, okay, I'm going to allow myself 2 days off for each treatment, and then life's just going to carry on as normal. And the first couple of months, I managed to hold it together, but I got really, really sick. And because it was so hard to eat, I got very, very thin. First time in my life, first and only time in my life that I got really thin, not the right way to do it. And all my hair fell out, and my eyebrows and my eyelashes. So you are looking a little bit, you are looking sick, you really are looking sick. I was looking sick, and I was really battling. And I went to see my oncologist, which I had to do the day before every chemotherapy, and she said, what is going on? And I said, I just cannot hold it together. I'm so busy, and I just feel so sick and just so tired. And she said, you know what, you need to take time for yourself. She sat me down and she said, you need 3 months off, 3 months completely off. And I said, oh, but I can't, I've got my business and my clients, and how am I going to take 3 months off? She said, if they're clients of yours and they value you, they will value the fact that you are focusing on getting better. And she said, just think about this. And I'll always remember it. She said, if you don't come through this treatment, who is going to care in a year's time or 2 years' time? And the reality is, my clients, as much as I think they think I'm wonderful, I think they're wonderful, they will move on. They will find other financial planners to work with. They have to. The people who will really care are my family and my children, my husband, my mother, and perhaps some of my very close friends. And she said, you owe it to your family. If you feel you don't owe it to yourself, you owe it to your family to give yourself the time to focus on getting better. And that's really important. So I did take some time off. Most of my clients were, in fact, all of them, absolutely understood. Now that I'm back and going flat out again, I think I do spend a lot more time taking chunks of time out. So whereas I would work sometimes a whole year and just never take time out, now we do focus on booking off time, and we go to the Drakensberg, we go to the beach. My daughter's now living in the UK. We went out to see her last year. We had a lovely time. We're going out again later this year. We do block off time. So I think in a way I've achieved much more balance in my life than I ever did, but I still don't think it's perfect.
Balance is a very difficult thing, and the balance is different for every person. So the reality check, if somebody is feeling overwhelmed and with too much to do, I loved what you said there about think about the people who care about you the most, and that's where your energy needs to go. So it can help people focus and give their energy where it needs to go, rather than where we feel it has to go. Is that kind of what you were saying?
Absolutely. And then, if you do take time out, I read more about what I was going through. I met people who had also gone through what I had gone through. I spent time with my children and my husband. I spent time sleeping and relaxing. All of these things I think one doesn't do in one's normal day. I did some meditation courses. So all of those things, I think, I know they helped, because I did start picking up, even though I was still having the chemotherapy. I did start picking up, and I did start getting better. I also focused more on my diet and my personal health. My dad found some nutritionist who made some special shake, because one of the things that I found with chemotherapy is every single thing I ate or drank, even water, tasted it like it had metal shavings in it. So it's very hard to swallow the stuff that just tastes so awful. So I got this special shake that I used to have to drink 4 times a day, block my nose and down it. But it did help, because the body needs to be fed. You need the calories. How can you fight any illness? How can you keep any energy level up if you don't feed yourself? Absolutely. And to just not eat is certainly not going to help you. It's not going to support the treatment that you're going through. So all of that, taking a bit of time out, I ended up the oncologist recommended 6 months. I probably took about 6 weeks off, and then I just started doing little bits. So not doing a full day's work, just doing maybe an hour in the morning and an hour in the afternoon, just to sort of keep track and make a few phone calls to important people. Although a lot of my clients phoned me or contacted me and said, "Don't worry about us." And you know, the reality is, I'm not a neurosurgeon or an oncologist.
Yeah,
you know, my clients aren't going to die if I can't help them for a couple of months. They're not. In fact, the whole point about financial planning is once you've got your plan in place, you need to keep it in place for the long term, maybe making a few adjustments along the way. So you shouldn't be making changes every week anyway. Yeah.
So what was the most important learning that you took from having been ill? I mean, we've spoken about a number of things that you're doing or did to enhance or enable you to get to full health again. And so that, I'm assuming, is part of your life, still going forward, more time out and that kind of thing. But was there any significant thing that you learned and you've changed your life as a result of being sick?
What would be
maybe your priorities or...
Yeah, look, I think my priorities perhaps are a little bit more balanced than they ever were. Getting a serious disease or something serious like that happening really brings you face to face with your own mortality in a way that perhaps I'd never really thought about before. So you have a real reality check. I'm not immortal, and this is a gift. Having life and having family and having people who love you and children and community is such an incredible gift. And so don't take it for granted. Treat it as a gift and try and, I know it sounds a little bit cliched to say seize the day, live for the day, like Dead Poets Society, carpe diem, but really it is such a gift. And I think I don't perhaps do it enough, but I do quite often say, you know, I'm so fortunate I have this gift, and I won't have it forever. I am getting older. We all, you know, this is not eternity for us. Our time on this planet is a finite time, and we've got to try and make the most of it whilst we have it.
Absolutely. So in other words, really engaging in life, living it fully, and having the gratitude to realize and acknowledge it. Because a lot of people do take it for granted. They take their health for granted. They assume they're just always going to be well and able to do whatever they choose. But sometimes that doesn't happen.
You know, you talk about health. Health is a strange thing, because whilst we're healthy, we focus on a whole lot of other things that we think are so important. We're not making enough money, our career's not going well enough, our children aren't clever enough, good enough at sport, we don't have a big enough house, big enough car, we can't afford to go on the holidays that our friends go on, or whatever the story is. We're constantly focusing on all sorts of things which, when your health goes, they become completely irrelevant. Completely.
Not important.
Because you can't enjoy any of those things. It is the most important thing, is to have your health. Even for your family. I mean, it's very hard for a family, very stressful for a family to have to look after somebody who's not well. So it helps it helps your whole family to have a much better life if you are healthy. So we need to constantly remind ourselves that without our health, nothing is important. So treasure it. Treasure it when you have it.
And so my final question, Janine, is if one of the listeners out there has recently been diagnosed with not necessarily a cancer, but a serious illness, what advice would you give them? You know, you will go through the roller coaster of emotions, because I just think it's normal. But it's not something you deserve. Nobody deserves it. But it happens to people
so many times. And in fact, often you hear of people that you never imagined had cancer, and they'll tell you, oh yes, I had it 10 years ago, 5 years ago, this thing, that thing. So it is, unfortunately, cancer and lots of other stress-related illnesses, I think primarily, are much more prevalent. They're either increasingly prevalent or they're being picked up more quickly. So it does happen. It's not your fault, and it's not because you were singled out for it. So get over that. Get over that emotion. Allow yourself the luxury of going through the roller coaster, but you need to get over that. And once you have, then really focus on listening to your the medical people who are working with you, and do what they tell you you need to do, and just remain positive. Surround yourself by as much love and support as you can, and remain positive, and just say, I'm not going to allow this to beat me. I'm not going to allow it. Really, really. And I know maybe some people will say this is idealistic, but even if ultimately it beats you, whilst you're fighting it, you're giving it a good fight.
Super. Oh, thanks, Janine. Lots of pearls of wisdom there for our listeners, whether they are ill themselves or whether it is for the carers who are looking after them. You've given us a lot to think about, and I ask our listeners if they have any questions or queries or any comments to please make contact with me via my website, which is www.sherryforsyth.com, or you can drop me an email on sherryforsyth@gmail.com. It's spelled CHERRIFORSYTH. And let's start this conversation so that we will be able to look after our own health, but also we'll be able to care for those who are suffering with an illness. We'll be able to care for them in a much better way. So thanks again, Janine, for your time.
Thank you, Sherry. I enjoyed having the chat.